Hello, all you lovely people. It is I, Jules, your saviour and full-toothed mouthpiece of modern gaming, back with my first list of 2019 on the gaming channel. Whether or not it'll be released in order is anyone's guess, but still, I hope you are well and having a great start to this brand new year. And what better way to encapsulate this feeling of togetherness and unity than by dividing up and killing each other? Oh well, that didn't last very long, did it? Multiplayer modes and gaming go together like wet bread and me not liking it, but it's quite surprising to see that sometimes these contests of strength and skill crop up in games that are more often than not known solely for their single-player offerings. Some of them aren't that great and just feel like a bit of padding, but sometimes lightning will strike and you'll end up with not just a great narrative title, but also a pretty brilliant fracas of frenzy. So let's pay tribute to them today. I'm Jules, your one-per-list wonder for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 surprisingly great multiplayer modes in single-player games. Number 10, Saints Row. While the last and most over-the-top Saints Row entry to the franchise was utterly balls-to-the-wall silly billy spray paint, the original Saints Row was way more of a straight-laced title. If you were being super critical of the game, you could have said that it was just a GTA clone, but if you were being more honest, you'd see it had a fun open world, an interesting narrative, and a distinct graphical style. It also contained a multiplayer offering that was shovels of fun. Being one of the first open-world crime online games, it leaned heavily on its gangster motifs and put silly spins on traditional game modes. Protect the Pimp was basically an escort the payload mode, for example, and there were so many ways to customize your character and loadout that it slowly became a great reason to pick up the title. It wasn't something that broke the mold so much as it was just an unexpected joy, and all the better that it didn't cost you a single extra penny to play around with all the features. Number 9, Dead Space 2. When you think of the words Dead Space, a multiplayer game is probably not what you might immediately think of. You might think of survival horror, you might think of Josh Brown's head, or you might think of the dark nasty that your mother keeps between her thighs, but you don't think of multiplayer fun. Well, actually, you do with your mum because she's a moose for the length. But anyway, there's my one per list, and moving on. Dead Space 2 did offer such flesh-ripping joy in its second iteration, where players could take the fight to the necromorphs, or even more scintillatingly, you could play as the deadweight heavyweights and smash some puny humans. And to their credit, the devs put some real time into making the sides feel different and balanced enough to both be fun. The engineers played as you'd expect, but the morphs were faster and more visceral, meaning that it was truly satisfying to get them into combat. Yum yum. Number 8, Mass Effect 3. Amongst the then controversy that was the ending and a more action-orientated gameplay style, the multiplayer offering to the righteous alien romancing title The Third could have easily slipped under the waters, but those who passed over this wave-based game mode really did miss one of the best parts about this title. It's not like it wasn't marketed heavily and was even raised in the game itself a few times, but still many saw it simply as a bit of fluff. However, if you decided to take part in these small squad-based missions, you'd find a tightly focused challenge with numerous options for battle. The concept was super simple. Up to 4 players teamed together to face Reapers, Geth, Cerebrus, and Collectors across 11 waves on 19 different maps, and every few rounds you get an extra little challenge or a boss thrown in for fun. Honestly, I've never had a better time slinging psi powers than as a Volus barely keeping up the sprint with the rest of the team. Jesus Christ, that was good fun. Me and my friend Liam used to play this all the time. We came up with a little singing for it. It was, he's the Volus that knows us, and we just screamed that down the microphone. It's not pertinent to this entry, but I just thought you'd enjoy that. Number 7, Assassin's Creed 3. Now, technically, Ubisoft introduced multiplayer into Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but the developer improved upon it greatly in AC3. Unlike other Assassin's Creed games, AC3 had a diverse landscape of towns, snowy frontiers, and sea, which made it instantly stand out. Then there was the interesting modes like Wolfpack, which saw 4 players teaming together to take out targets under a time limit. It rewarded teamwork, and that wasn't actually a very common or even expected feature of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Another mode was Domination, which tasked 8 players with attempting to capture 3 zones in the frontier. The great thing about this mode was that rather than have you run around like headless chickens with knives flying about like in a cutlery store caught in a hurricane, you actually had to try and blend in with crowds in order to fool other players. All this, plus a narrative that felt quite connected to the main body, meant that this was a stellar addition to an already strong entry. Number 6, Doom. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that one of the best pure gameplay experiences of this generation also made for a great multiplayer mode. I bloody love the Doom reboot, and not simply because it allowed me to vent frustrations in ways that my doctor is always telling me to do, but also because it controlled like each of your thumbs was being pleasured by Persian silks. Yeah, I've still got a lot to work through with Dr. Statham. While Doom's single player put you in the shoes of the type of Space Marine that Warhammer fans can only dream of, the multiplayer couldn't make you that powerful. So with some balancing and some serious thought, we ended up with something that was kind of like Halo meets Quake, and when it played this well, it was kind of better than both of them, in my opinion at least. Number 5, BioShock 2. Okay, Jules, keep calm. It's only the sequel to one of your favourite games, and say it with me, kids, of all time, but a lot of people think that this is the weakest in the series. Just stay cool and try not to get over-opinionated about it. No, sorry, I can't do this. Come on, guys. BioShock 2 is an underrated banger. Sure, it's got more pipe puzzles than even my most lurid sex dreams, and yes, the story is weaker than the banger that was the BioShock 1 one, but come on, it played so well, and its multiplayer got me absolutely soaking. If the idea of running around Rapture, capturing resources and beheading your fellow great men and women sounds great, all alongside a well-contained little story and the regular charming aesthetic sounds and looks, then this is the multiplayer for you. The best thing is that you can use all of your tricky plasmid powers to undo your enemies, and you even get to capture more atoms than we can even manage at WhatCulture. Seriously, we've had like 6 of them. And finally, you could become the Big Daddy. I mean, I know you already had done in the single player, but still, you could become the Big Daddy here. Usually I've got to pay for that privilege, so yes, donning that stinky suit and wrecking shop was an absolute joy. Number 4, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Now, the Uncharted games have seen their fair share of multiplayer additions, starting with Uncharted 2, but I tell you what, my pasty children, Uncharted 4 was where the game really understood what it took to make a great multiplayer offering. Well-designed maps, fast gameplay, plenty of customization, and good matchmaking all became the backbone of the fourth game's online experience. It was clear that the devs were keen to push this section as well, adding numerous content drops as well as the obligatory funky hat or two. Actually, serious question, what is the best hat in gaming outside of my own collection, of course? I would actually wager that games are bettered by silly hats. I might do a list on it. Anyway, you should definitely check this out as it's still pretty active, if not solely for swinging around on that rope, which is just absolute glory. Number 3, Nioh. Nioh was, in many ways, a straight-up copy of the Dark Souls franchise. Now, before you backstab, I'm just saying that it is from a core perspective, as the actual delivery couldn't be more different. Now, in Souls games, you would find signposts from other players and summon them to help you. In Nioh, though, you can resurrect the AI ghost of a fallen player and fight them. If you win, you get their loot that they carried at the time. It was a very fun system that made each battle tense and rewarding. It made me want to seek out other players and try to best them, as it not only netted me some sweet multicolored loot, but it also taught me how to play the game better. It's not multiplayer in the traditional sense, but my lord am I glad that it was given to us in this game. Plus, I mean, how cool is it to think that there's a ghost version of your character potentially putting the blades into some unlucky fool out there right now. Oh, take that, Dean, you smelly twat. Number 2, Grand Theft Auto 5. It is utterly mental to think that this game has been going on for nearly 5 years online, and it's still adding in new and exciting modes to keep things feeling fresh. To put it bluntly, GTA 5 Online is the most perfect expression of what GTA is. Now, I'm not saying that it's always been good. In fact, it had a bit of a rocky launch, but at the same time, it's grown into something at once serious in its approach to offering visceral fun and insane enough to allow rocket-powered cars to be able to drive over colourfully impossibly placed tracks. First, there were the death matches, then there were the heist, and now it's Tron cycles and TV-style deathmatch arenas. It's like a stone that's not stopped rolling and become a wrecking ball in the process. And number 1, The Last of Us. This blew my bloody mind when I first sat down to play The Last of Us Online. I did not expect there to be anything of worth in this section, not because I mistrusted the devs, but because the single player was simply just so goddamn good that it didn't need a multiplayer section. The Last of Us's multiplayer suite is quite robust, with a few different modes that feel starkly different to Uncharted. While that series multiplayer is fast and frantic shooting, The Last of Us's version is scaled back, slowed down, and befitting of the bleak and dangerous world you inhabit. In fact, The Last of Us's multiplayer stands out against most for being much more methodical and rewarding of patience. Sneaking around the maps, distracting other players with bottles, and using your wits is the only way to stand tall at the end, and in many ways is the same addictive rush that Battle Royale games came to refine in years to come. Maybe that's why this is always held aloft as a hidden gem on an already gleaming diamond in Sony's crown. And there we go, those were 10 surprisingly brilliant multiplayer modes that were hidden in single-player titles. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments section below. Go to shop.whatculture.com and go check out the merch that we've got there. You could look very stylish. As always, I've been Jules. Go follow me at RetroJ with a 0. You have been awesome in this year of 2019, and I'll speak to you soon. Love you lots. Bye.